This is a video for Unit 3 of Math 1001. It will cover the topics of measures of area, volume, and capacity. Let's begin with an example. Let's convert 1 square foot to square inches. We learned previously, dealing with measures of length, that we know 1 foot is the same thing, forgot my T, 1 foot is the same thing as 12 inches. We might, because of that, think, well, 1 square foot, which we denote like that, would be 12 square inches. However, this is wrong. A square foot is not 12 square inches. So let's go to a diagram to help us figure this out. So we have our 1 square foot over here, and each side has length 1 foot. So this is 1 foot, and this is 1 foot. Okay? So let's think about what that means also as compared to inches. Well, this 1 foot on the top is really divided up into 12 inches. So we can think, here's our 12 inches. Okay. And the same thing on the side. This 1 foot is divided up into 12 inches. Okay. So how many square inches are we going to have? Well, we could extend each one of these little tick marks I made to make the whole grid, and it would look something like this. So notice what we have here. This is 1 inch, and that is 1 inch, and this part that I'm about to color in red, that is 1 square inch. Well, how many square inches are there? Well, we have 12 across and 12 down. This is 144 square inches. So 1 square foot is 144 square inches. So we have to be careful to not just think 1 square foot is 12 square inches. That's not correct. A square foot is 144 square inches. We can also do our dimensional analysis like we did before. If we need to get from this square feet to square inches, well, 1 square foot, well, we know that I can have 1 foot is 12 inches. That would cancel one of these with the foot. So I actually will need another one, another 12 inches times 1 foot. And notice what happens, foot squared needs a foot and a foot. Foot times foot is foot squared. So now our dimensional analysis has showed us 12 times 12, 144 square inches. So 1 foot is 144 square inches. Okay. We could use some similar methods to discover these up here on the top area. We could do some of our work that we had from our previous measures of length. We're going to introduce one new thing, an acre. An acre is a measurement usually for land, how much land something is. A lot of times when you're talking about buying property or farms, things like that, is measured in acres. You can describe an acre as 43,560 square feet. That's what it's defined to be. Or 640 acres is the same thing as a square mile. And then if we're talking about some of our English and metric conversions, a square inch is approximately 6.45 square centimeters. A square foot is about 0.093 square meters, and so on down the line. So let's do some examples. A farmer has some land and it measures 4,500 acres. How many square miles will that be? Well, first we need an equivalence that compares our acres to square miles. Okay, there's our two units we're looking at, acres and square miles. Well, from that page a minute ago, I know that 1 square mile is 640 acres. That is our equivalence. So we'll use that to do our dimensional analysis and come up with a conversion factor. So where am I starting? I'm starting with 4,500 acres. I need to cancel out acres. So when I make my conversion factor, I'm going to put the part with acres on the bottom and put the other one, the square mile, on top. Doing that lets acres cancel, and I'm left with 4,500 over 640 square miles. And we'll put that in our calculator to clean it up. 4,500 divided by 640. And we end up with this, and we'll just go to 2 decimal places on this. So 7.03 square miles. All right, so we have converted acres to miles. Okay, so let's look at another one. So an artist paints a mural, and it's going to cover 825 square feet. How many square yards will that be? Well, from our page a minute ago, we need some way to compare square feet and square yards. So what we got earlier, 1 square yard is 9 square feet. Okay, so we're starting out with square feet, so 825 square feet. And I need to cancel out square feet. So when I do pick my conversion factor, I'm going to make sure that I put the square feet on the bottom. So 9 square feet is the same thing as 1 square yard. That cancels out my square feet and gets to the yards that I want. So I have 825 over 9 square yards. And let's do that division real quick. 825 divided by 9, and we get 91.6 repeating, it looks like. So we'll say 91.67 square yards. Okay. Let's look at capacity now. So if we're talking about capacity, it's kind of an idea of volume, how much something holds. Some English units, you may be familiar with pints, quarts, gallons. So that top table is how pints and quarts and gallons and fluid ounces are all related to each other. And then at the bottom, we're going to talk about cubic feet. So before, when we were talking about area, we were talking about square feet and square yards because we could think it was a flat plane we were looking at. Now that we're talking about volume capacity, it's a 3-dimensional thing, so it's cubic now. It's cubed instead of squared. And so here are some equivalences that we have for some units of capacity. So let's look at the first one. How many ounces are in a gallon of milk? So how many ounces are in a gallon of milk? So I need something that relates ounces and gallons. Well, I don't have that directly, but our original sheet did have, let's flip back for just a second. Notice it had gallon compared to quarts. Quarts was compared to pints, and pints was compared to ounces. So we can use all of these to get where we need to be. So what were those? We knew that what's going to be helpful, that 16 ounces is 1 pint. If I take 2 pints, then I have a quart. And if I take 4 quarts, then I have a gallon. And I'll use those to get there. So how many ounces are in a gallon of milk? That means I need to start with 1 gallon and eventually get to ounces. All right. To get from gallons to ounces, I don't have a direct conversion, so I'm going to go through. So first I'll switch gallons to quarts. So 1 gallon is 4 quarts, and that cancels out gallons. All right, well, I don't want 4 quarts. I don't want quarts. I want to eventually get to ounces. So I can switch quarts to pints. That may help me. So I can switch quarts to pints. It looks like 1 quart is 2 pints, so I'll do that conversion factor that way. So what did that do? Now quarts are canceled. So now my units is pints. That's still not where I want to be. I want to be all the way to ounces. So I need to cancel out my pints to get them in ounces. And 1 pint is 16 ounces. So pints will cancel here. All right, I should be good now because my only unit left is ounces. So this is kind of looking across. I have 4 times 2 times 16 ounces. And on the bottom, I only have ones left, so I don't really have to worry too much. So I just have 4 times 2 times 16. So that's 4 times 2 times 16. And I get 128. And there are 128 ounces in a gallon of milk. Excuse me. All right, so let's do one more question. We have a contractor that is installing a small backyard pond for his client. The goal is it for it contain 100 cubic feet of water. So the contractor's intern says, okay, I'll just get this 5-gallon bucket off the truck. I'll fill it up at the faucet and then dump it in the pond. And I'll go back to the faucet, fill it up, dump it in the pond. And I'll just keep using this 5-gallon bucket over and over to fill up this 100 cubic feet pond. So what we want to know, is this a good idea? Is he just going to have to dump that 5-gallon bucket a few times? Or should he go buy a hose because this is going to take too long? Basically, how many times is he going to have to refill this bucket? Okay, so what we need to know, let's kind of highlight some things. We know it contains 100 cubic feet of water, this pond, and we're going to use a 5-gallon bucket. So it'd be helpful to know a comparison between cubic feet and gallons. And from our original page, we had that 1 cubic foot is about 7.48 gallons. So from that, we can make a conversion factor. So we'll start with 100 cubic feet, and we want to get to gallons, so we need to cancel the cubic feet. So 1 cubic foot was 7.48 gallons. So that cancels. And what does this equal? Well, 100 times 7.48, well, that's going to be 748. We can just move that decimal point twice. So 748 gallons. Okay, so that pond is 100 cubic feet, which means it's also 748 gallons is how big it is. All right, so what did this contractor's intern say he was going to do? He said he was going to take that 5-gallon bucket and just keep filling it up at the faucet and dump it in that empty pond. So if he's going 5 gallons at a time, excuse me, that means that 748 needs to divide by 5 gallons at a time. That means that we're going to have 149.6, so 150 trips to fill it up. Now, is that reasonable to take a 5-gallon bucket and refill it 150 times to fill up this pond? No, he should go buy a hose. So this is not reasonable. We would tell the intern to go buy a hose. He does not understand the dimensions here very well. He doesn't have a concept of how big 100 cubic feet is compared to gallons. But we do. We've made this conversion and have made sense of this situation.